Hello, good morning, welcome. Happy freaking Monday to you. It is Monday already, right? I'm not like a day early. I can't go home and climb back into bed. Why was I freezing my rear end off last night? That is the important question on everyone's lips. Frozen lips this morning. Why am I freezing my butt off in the middle of June? I don't understand it. It just ain't right. It ain't right. Well, let's all cry together. How about them apples? Let's see. Lots of news today. Probably the most entertainment of all is going to come from, what's his nuts? What's his nuts over there? The guy in England, the old Starmer. Yeah. That guy is entertaining, if nothing else. And now he's given up. He's thrown in the towel. So here we are, live at the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio, and people's very lives are changing over in England. They're no longer the Prime Minister. I read a report last night said that Prince Andrew. Well, there are several British. I don't know how I got on this ridiculous British channel, but I started reading the British news, and because they were talking about Starmer bailing, finally throwing in the towel. I give up. I give up. I can't do it any longer. And it interested me, of course, because he should have gone long ago, and he's got like a 10% approval rating. And then guess who has a higher approval rating than Starmer? Get this. Well, maybe even lower. You know what? I got that backwards. Oh, what the hell? I'm all backwards up. Well, they're about even. Well, it depends on the day, I suppose. Today, Starmer's probably higher. He has a higher opinion because he finally left. But the person who has a lower rating is Prince Andrew. So Prince Andrew he's no longer a prince, by the way. They stole that title from him, and I forget what they call him these days. But he's the Duke of blah, blah, blah. And those guys don't have to be pure as a driven snow, kind of like a prince does. You know, all princes are, of course, very, very pure, pristine, pure as the driven snow, like many of the women I have dated. Not. At any rate, well, there was one, maybe, who was pure as a driven snow. Maybe I'm on a roll this morning, friends and neighbors. Let's get back to where we were going. But the old Starmer, the senior labor minister, he's given up that job too, by the way. Said he's leaving. And his approval rating right now is higher than Prince Andrew's. But they want to get rid of the monarchy. They're saying that only 55% of the people in GB, Great Britain, would like to keep the monarchy. They're even saying that they're losing Commonwealth participants, like the Commonwealth, like Australia, Canada. They don't want anything to do with a king. Get rid of him. We don't need a monarchy. So they're less popular from their heyday in the 80s and 90s because they showed Prince, or what was his name? Lancelot, and which was Richard Gere and old Sir Sean Connery as the king way back when, with that really, really attractive actress who was torn between the two when Lancelot and King Arthur were battling. Back then, people were all for monarchy, because you had good movies. You had Richard Gere. You had all these hot people having hot movies. And even the bad guy, Sir Maleficent or whatever his name was, he was Sir Malignant. I forget they named him. They named him something crazy to get rid of him. But the story goes like this. The senior labor ministers refused to support their party leader, who has been beset or set upon by scandal and broken promises. Isn't that the definition of politics? They never answer their promises. You know, is he to turn out like old Bush 1? Read my lips. No new taxes. And then a week later, new taxes. The hell? That's not right. You told me no new taxes. Well, you know, here we go. The old Trumpster told me no new war. And here we are settling a war that we started by capitulating. I don't get it. Let's see. But the price of fuel has come down. Did you see that? I paid $3.49. It's already come down 50 freaking cents. Now, how is that possible? How is that possible? It's not like we get any of it. We never got any of it before. These people are raping us, and they aren't even kissing us first. You don't even get a reach around. Nothing. And they just screw you repeatedly. But British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, I think I'm going to change my name to Keir. Wouldn't that be great? From now on, I want you all to call me Loretta. I would like to be Loretta. I always thought I'd like that name. So I was listening to Monty Python this morning, speaking of British, and before we get there, we're going to play that for you, at least the end of the parrot sketch. When do you know what is his name? The one of the most important players in Monty Python was a barrister, was a lawyer, and John Cleese. And he was a lawyer. And that guy is so dry and hilarious, it's not even funny. And he, the one about the dead parrot, I heard the dead parrot one. And it just, so these songs, I have like 19,000 of them or something like that rotate through my my truck. And so you never know what you're going to get. And I got the parrot sketch, the live parrot sketch at Hollywood Bowl, and it is actually the best version of it. And I got that. I'd love to share that with you. Maybe I will. Where he says, "This is an ex-parrot," at the end, but he does it oh so much better. Let's see if we can find him. But first, let's tell you about Kiev launching a drone barrage at Moscow. Zelensky gives an ultimatum to Belarus. He wants to attack them. He wishes to bomb them. Trump says only he has the wherewithal to charge people to cross the Straits of Hormuz. Only he can do that. Iran, you guys can't do that. Only I can. Certainly, we're not going to allow it, but we might charge people. So, Trump, I love it. If you don't own property, just take it. And then, then charge people. You don't own the oil in Venezuela? Oh, well, now we do. That's how it works. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced that he will resign from his post. Not soon enough. Come on, get the hell out. Resign and will step down as the leader of the Labour Party. In an address outside 10 Downing Street on Monday. How do you like that? In an address. How's he in an address if he's outside of it? He's at 10 Downing Street. Maybe they should say at the address outside 10 Downing Street on Monday. Maybe we should be grammatically correct here. Or if he's in the address, maybe he should go inside and not stand on the porch. You can't have it both ways, Mr. Starmer. I know you're trying to, but during the address, how about that? During the address outside 10 Downing Street on Monday, old Keir said he had already informed King Charles III of his decision and asked the brother of Andrew, and asked the Labour Party, who has a 10% rating, asked the Labour Party to lay out a timetable to elect a new leader by September, adding that he's going to remain in his post, at his post. You can't be in your post. How are you going to climb inside a piece of wood? Come on. Until then. Starmer became the prime minister in 2024 following Labour, spelled Labour correctly in Great Britain, party's victory in that year's general election. He repeatedly has vowed to stay in the post, on the post, at the post, on the watch, but he faces pressure to resign amid growing discontent and the declining popularity of his party. And not only your party, buddy boy, you have no popularity either. His resignation makes him the 6th UK Prime Minister to leave office in the past 10 years. You know, maybe I shouldn't analyze British grammar because these guys, they don't go to sleep. They don't take a nap. They take a kipper. We got a kip on, you got to kip a little bit. That's taking a nap. You have a boot, and that is the trunk of your car. What else? There's all kinds of weirdness going on over there. I don't know. They're British. They're just odd. Maybe this person who wrote it. Let's find out who it is. Maybe I shouldn't complain. Doesn't say. That's nice. Where is it? Says I can share the story, but doesn't tell you who wrote it. Well, how about them apples? His resignation, once more, makes him the 6th UK Prime Minister to leave office in the past 10 years. How come we can't get our assholes to leave office? They never leave. They stay there forever. You can't pry them out with a crowbar. Even when they're dead, they'd like to stay. You know, that's it's not good. It's just wrong. I don't like it. Let's see. Where are we going to go here? You know what we're going to look for? We're going to look for Monty Python live at Hollywood Bowl parrot sketch, because you have to hear the parrot sketch. The dead parrot sketch. Oh, the cheese shop is also quite funny. And the silly secret policeman's ball, that's pretty good too. Here's the full show. The dead parrot sketch live. Here it is. But it's only 1:42. And we're never going to get there. Monty Python live at the Hollywood Bowl. But they only play the full thing. I don't want the full thing. They have the 4 Yorkshiremen, too. By the way, I was in, when I was in high school, me and a bunch of buddies did the 4 Yorkshiremen from Monty Python Hollywood Bowl when they were, and maybe we'll play that one. We'll call this the Monty Python show, because in honor of Mr. Starmer, who is leaving. And who's the guy? So I watch Alex Christoforou, and at the end of every show, he has something he calls his darn it, it's like funny show. It's like stupidity, things that's, so your stupid pet show, so your stupid pet tricks, only ours are stupid adult tricks, stupid politician tricks, and he puts them out there. This would be a good one. We could have Keir Starmer. Despite entering office with a large majority and a promise to restore competence after years of conservative turmoil. Yeah, we got to get rid of the conservatives, right? Starmer's government quickly became associated with tax hikes, welfare cuts, censorship, political scandal, and an increasingly unpopular foreign agenda. He has faced growing backlash over what critics have described as two-tier policing and radical censorship after authorities cracked down on anti-immigration protesters, online speech, and pro-Palestinian activism, but push broader internet control. And then they arrest people if they're white and male and complain about people of color or the invasion of Britain by Arab and African Muslim countries. Starmer made support for Ukraine the central element of his premiership, joining France and Germany, 2 other jokers, with very, very low ratings. What's his name? Macron was at 16%, and Merz is just under 20, like 19.8. In an increasingly militarized Ukraine policy built around what? Weapon deliveries security guarantees. Like you could guarantee your own security, let alone Ukraine's. You can't do it. And pressure on Russia rather than diplomacy. At home, his stance on Ukraine clashes with Britain's own defense problems. His government has struggled to find money for its own armed forces and has faced procurement failure and growing concern over military readiness. Starmer faces backlash after appointing politically connected figures with ties to the late financier and pedophile Jeffrey Epstein as ambassador to the United States. The scandal reinforced criticism that his government serves the insulated elite white while failing to deliver for ordinary voters. How about that? How about that? Crazy freaking sauce. Let's see. Russia did it. This is what the Keir Starmer article is all about. Here you go. Hang on. This is fun, too. We're going to keep on Keir Starmer. Arson Gates missing piece. After a British court verdict, this came out the 20th of June, so 2 whole days ago, Britain's media machine rushed to blame Moscow, despite investigators admitting they had no proof of state involvement. A coordinated UK media campaign surrounding a Ukraine-linked arson plot cannot hide the obvious holes in the story Britain wants its citizens to believe. Well, us too. They want us to believe that it was all in Russia. After a year of mounting mystery, fevered speculation, and strange media silence, a UK court has finally reached a verdict in the bizarre case of Arsongate. In May 2025, a series of incendiary attacks were carried out on a car and 2 London properties linked to acting UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. See, they're already calling him acting UK Prime Minister. How do you like that? On June 15, 2 young Ukrainians were convicted, while another was acquitted. The case against a guilty pair seems open and shut, but for many, it just doesn't feel right. How could it be a Ukrainian? It has to be a Russian. How did prosecutors manipulate the Arsongate trial? The unconvinced include a lawyer of Petro Pachinuk, the 34-year-old arrested in June 2025 on the charges of conspiring with fellow Ukrainian nationals Roman Lavrinovich and Stanislav Karpiuk, 21 and 26, respectively. Pochinuk walked free. The other 2 were convicted of damaging property by fire and reckless endangerment of human life. On June 16th, Pochinuk's defense counsel remarked on X, "I still find my head pickled over what real underlying truths were never exposed. In fact, it was very clear what underlying truths were not exposed during the trial by court order. When proceedings began in May of this year, with Lavrinovich and Karpiuk having spent close to 12 months in the UK's high-security Belmarsh prison, prosecution attorneys dramatically announced the arson attacks on Starmer's old property had been orchestrated online by a shady Russian-speaking Telegram user, El Money, E-L Money. However, jurors were then told to completely disregard this literally explosive information when reaching a verdict on the 3 accused. There are obvious echoes in the recent trial of Palestinian activists in the UK, where the presiding judge, who had previously represented MI6 in court, ruled that jurors could not consider why activists committed the crimes of which they were accused. Unable to argue in court that their actions were proportionate to prevent slaughter in Gaza, The actionists were convicted for lengthy terms as terrorists. Why did the Arson Gate judge rule key information as being irrelevant? It is not part of your consideration to decide who El Money is and what reason he might have had to coordinate the actions of these defendants, said the chief prosecutor. Defense lawyers attempted to breach this conspiracy of silence and demanded that prosecutors hand over all information that they held on El Money. They were specifically interested in whether he might be a spy and his country of residence. However, the judge ruled these crucial matters to be wholly irrelevant to any issue before the jury. In summing up, prosecution lawyers claimed that El Money was seeking to destabilize our society, but went on to remind the jury it wasn't their job to determine who El Money might be or what motivation he or she might have had. Lavrinovich's lawyer still tried to place questions about El Money, the anonymous devil who manipulated, used, and won. Calling El Money the one winner in this case, they suggested the anonymous telegram user is a Russian, a Russian agent. What do we know about him? Nothing. Here's the quote from the Lavrinovich's lawyer. What do we know about him? Nothing. Where's he from? Who might have had an interest in trying to undermine this country's support for Ukraine, who are fighting for their liberty? Oh, yeah, that's what they're fighting for. Who might do that? But Russia. Let's call it out. Russia is interested in what this country does in support of Ukraine. This person or speaker or people spoke excellent Russian, Lavrinovich's lawyer thundered. Well, yeah, but all Ukrainians speak Russian. It's the rare Ukrainian that doesn't speak Russian. That's the thing, except for the if you're under 30, maybe, but everybody else, absolutely. If you're under 30, they've been trying to outlaw Russian everywhere, and you're supposed to hate them, right? That's how it's supposed to be. However, the lawyer neglected to mention how El Money conversed in perfect Ukrainian, according to Lavrinovich, a language very few Russians speak. Well, that's true. While Southern Russians can more easily understand Ukrainian or even mimic it, cases in which a Russian born in the Russian Federation speaks excellent Ukrainian are rare and quite unlikely, given Kyiv's aggressive cultural posturing and lack of need for Russians to speak Ukrainian. Many Ukrainians speak Russian, which is natural, given it is a lingua franca of the former Soviet space, while only a minority of Russians understand Ukrainian, let alone speak it. This shocking fact wasn't reported while the trial was ongoing and has been completely drowned out by an extraordinary mainstream information war that erupted only hours after the jury verdict was announced. Was the UK behind a campaign to blame Russia for Arsongate? First, BBC released a ready-for-TV 30-minute panorama documentary, The Starmer Files, The Russian Connection, accompanied by a lengthy essay published on the state broadcaster website. Clearly, the BBC has been working on the investigations while the trial was going on and somehow acquired evidence on the case that couldn't be considered in court. According to the BBC's suspiciously timed release, El Money is a young Russian diplomat schooled in information warfare by spies and propagandists who is close to the highest levels of power in Moscow. How about that? This The EL in his pseudonym allegedly refers to the 23-year-old's real-life initials. The elite Russian spy, according to the British state broadcaster, used his own initials on a Telegram account in which he's alleged to have ordered a grave act of terrorism against an elected leader. In other words, the elite spy left a pretty convenient digital footprint for the BBC and other mainstream digital sleuths to trace. EL Money appears highly incompetent in other ways, not only in tying his account to his own name, but his activities on Telegram supposedly link him directly to Russian spy agencies. Yeah, that's what they do. An enormous amount of information was seemingly collected on EL Money by the BBC and others after Karpiuk and Lavrinovich were arrested, suggesting the account wasn't deleted, contrary to basic tradecraft. Who were the BBC's spooky conspirators in the media campaign? After the BBC's 1-2 PR punch, the Bellingcat-linked insider published an investigation validating the broadcaster's identification of EL Money, including photos and biographical details, also apparently long in the making. The insider's investigation chief is Christo Grozev, a prominent former member of Bellingcat. He left the organization under strange circumstances at the end of 2022, having spent much of that year spreading anti-Russian disinformation related to Ukraine's proxy war. Allegations that Grozev, a self-styled journalist, worked with Ukrainian intelligence personally participating in shadow operations dogged him throughout his time at Bellingcat. Why were Ukrainian sources the first to blame Russia? It may be no coincidence, then, that notorious Ukraine kill list website Mirotvorets subsequently published a dedicated profile in the 23-year-old Russian supposedly behind the EL Money account. Mirotvorets is confirmed to be run by Ukrainian spies. Several of its targets have been murdered. The young man's full address, phone number, and passport details are listed. They can't arrest him, though. That's odd. A section titled Liquidation Date that records the date the listed person has been killed or died is for now blank. However, it is not only EL Money's digital footprint that apparently provided vital clues as to Russia's culpability for the arson attack on Starmer. In June 2025, Skemu, a Ukrainian language investigative reporting project maintained by the CIA-created Radio Liberty, published a deep dive on how the arsonists were likely recruited by Russia. Evidence for this highly qualified claim was non-existent. Skemu's reporter simply concluded that Lavrinovich may have been recruited by Russian security services via Telegram, solely on the basis that he was actively seeking employment on the platform from 2022 to 2025. Nothing more. Most of the work he sought was in construction or hospitality, often for cash. Skemu reported. Weeks prior to his arrest, he had posted, "Looking for a job, open to any option." There's every chance perfect Ukrainian speaker EL Money spotted Lavrinovich in this matter. This is friggin' hilarious. What have British spy agencies reportedly concluded about Arsongate? Skemu's investigation was released at a time UK officials have been probing whether Russian actors may have recruited Lavrinovich and Karpiuk, but we're far from sure. The Financial Times reported how counterterrorism police leading the investigation are keeping an open mind about motive. UK officials were hedging their bets even further, cautioning that even if they concluded the arson attacks originating in Russia, that would not necessarily mean they were ordered by the Kremlin or that the suspects were aware of any Russian involvement. According to the BBC, British counter-terror police remain stumped on this question. The broadcaster's long read not only revealed law enforcement had not been able to prove the identity of EL Money or who he was working for, but a senior police chief stated plainly, "We've got no evidence to suggest this was a state-backed threat." However, the BBC reassured its readers that unspecified sources had informed its reporters, which included veteran Ukrainian propagandist Olga Malchevska. Authorities in the UK and in Ukraine have privately concluded Russia was behind the arson attacks. The BBC didn't explain why authorities in Ukraine have independently investigated a high-profile case that occurred in the UK, or apparently considered the huge vested interest Kyiv might have in framing Russia for the arson targeting Starmer's properties. The mainstream mania over Moscow's culpability for these attacks, which the recently concluded trial failed to consider, in fact, were ordered not to, and investigating police found no evidence for, spells that out very clearly. A common refrain from UK politicians is that the arson proves it's essential to defeat Putin in Ukraine. So I have to beat Putin because 3 idiot 21 to 26-year-old kids on the instructions of God knows who decided to bomb his car and two of his residents, or maybe 2 cars and a residence, I forget. But what's the bottom line? The media campaign should be viewed as just that, a media campaign, a concerted, state-backed information effort to frame the narrative already inscribed in the British public's consciousness, which facilitates riding roughshod over critical holes in its own narrative. But don't take my word for it. Consider how senior counter-terror police who investigated the case thoroughly and brought it to trial unequivocally cannot find any evidence that EL Money was working for any hostile state, let alone Russia. They also can't confirm the connection between them. Still, the BBC's readiness to publish a TV documentary and long-form material immediately after a court decision full of information that the presiding judge and prosecutors did not want discussed and did not emerge during the trial clearly suggests a significant overlap between British state media, the country's spying apparatus, and its own legal process. How about them apples? Isn't that Freaky Friday? Maybe this is why Starmer, maybe this is why he's so popular and why he is banning kids from social media. He's protecting children, he says, right? This article came out the 16th of June, right before he left. British Prime Minister Starmer has announced that under 16s are banned from social media, and adults will have to verify their identity to use major platforms. Critics say it's an opportunity for Starmer to fulfill his long-term goal of introducing digital ID by the back door. Starmer announced a ban on Monday, declaring that he's simply not prepared to be a bystander when the safety and happiness of our children are at stake. According to information released by his office, children under 16 will be banned from user-to-user apps like X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and will also be forbidden from live streaming and messaging strangers on gaming apps. So-called romantic companion AI chatbots will also be banned, and 16 and 17-year-olds will face nightly social media curfew. The ban will come into force next year. How do you feel about this? I don't know. This is weird. On the surface, the ban is an easy win for Starmer. 9 out of 10 parents told The Guardian, newspaper putting this out, that they would support such a ban, while 76% of all Britons, parents or not, back the measure. According to a YouGov poll, With Starmer facing a leadership challenge from within his own party and with his own approval rating languishing at a miserable 16%, the timing of the ban was convenient for him. Well, not really. He ended up bailing anyway. 2,102 Great Britain adults, including 350 parents with children under the age of 18. Now, why in the world would you have such a lopsided number? I'm not saying you shouldn't have all Great Britain adults, but think about this. 350 out of 2,112. That means 1,700-ish of these, 1,750 or so, of these people interviewed don't have any kids under the age of 18. Why does their opinion? I mean, who gives a crap about their opinion? I mean, you should, but when it comes to the kids, right? The question was, would you support or oppose banning children under the age of 18 from having social media accounts? Age of 16, sorry, I can't see. So all Britons, 76% support that measure. Parents with children under 18, 77, so 1% off. Oppose the ban, 16% of all Britons and 14% of those with. I wonder if their numbers, if they just didn't describe this properly, if they only interviewed 300 or only asked a question of 350 parents with children under the age of 18 and asked 2,102 Great Britain adults without determining whether they had children under the age of 18. I don't know. They're not very obvious in how they put these numbers together, and numbers definitely might matter. Question number 2. How effective, if at all, do you think a ban on children under the age of 16 from having social media accounts would be at stopping children from creating and using social media accounts? Parents say 45%. Very efficient. And 32% of all Britons say that. Not very effective at all, however, 59%. Yeah, that's not gonna help at all. So things are messier when it comes to the ban's enforcement. Details of the ban's enforcement mechanism remains vague, but over 16s will need to prove their identity in order to use apps restricted for children. Now, this is the problem, in my point of view. This is crap. Starmer's office said that the age verification will be to use the same model for social media ban as in Australia. Now, Australia, they're Gestapo over there. And the PM said that it will build on our experience with the Online Safety Act. In Australia, where a social media ban has been in place since December, users are required to prove they are over 16 by allowing their face to be scanned or submitting government-issued ID, with platforms in charge of conducting these checks. The UK's Online Safety Act already requires users to prove their age in order to access pornographic websites with facial scanning, open banking information, credit card checks, photo ID, and digital ID, all considered acceptable forms of proof by the UK's communication regulator, Ofcom. How about that? Is the ban an excuse to push a digital ID? Starmer tried and failed to introduce mandatory digital ID last year, claiming that it would allow the government to keep better track of illegal migrants. The plan was fiercely opposed by all opposition parties. We can't even get one to vote here. With Reform UK leader Nigel Farage saying it would make no difference to illegal immigration, but will be used to control and penalize the rest of us. Absolutely true in America, too. Let's listen to him just because it's fun. How long is this? A minute. Well, let's see what old Nigel Farage is friggin' hilarious, by the way. He's a comic. How come I can't stop him? There we go. Okay. We're going to listen to him here. Hang on. Hopefully he's not too loud.
So the Prime Minister says we must have digital ID. That's the way we'll stop illegal immigration. Well, think about it. Germany has ID cards, strict ID and checks. It's made no difference at all in Germany, and nor will it here. All that digital ID will be is a means of controlling the population, of telling us what we can and can't do, of fining the innocent. And didn't we see it all when we had the pandemic, when you had to have vaccine ID to travel, to do various things? Did that stop the COVID pandemic spreading? Did it help? All it did was put cost and inconvenience on everybody else. I also worry about massive data banks being held by the government, being hacked by foreign governments, by private companies, by criminals. I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend, and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
Who do you think they want to win this newspaper? Nigel Farage. Now, he's good to listen to, and he's decent, well-spoken. He's a Reform Party, right? Don't punish the rest of us. Speaking of which, I got a... Well, let's see if I can find that real quick. I'm pretty sure I have it here. Where is this? Lakeview Loan Settlement Agreement. Apparently, so I got an ad something in the mail the other day that said, and I scanned it. It's a notice that court-approved legal notice, Lakeview data breach settlement. I'm part of a class action. And it's Kroll Settlement Administration, LLC. Your information may have been exposed to an alleged data breach. There's a $26 million cash settlement of a lawsuit, and you may be entitled to money. To be part of the settlement, you have to respond by June 22. And I can visit this place, so I have to respond by today in order to get my cash, okay? And basically, that's what I believe. And I'll tell you some about that when we get finished with it. But Nigel was saying what bothers me about it is data breach, government control of your information that gets stolen by government workers, or worse, hacked by non-government workers. But usually it's, when they get to the bottom of it, it's some insider that's got it all. Anyway, dozens of Starmer's fellow Labour Party MPs condemn the scheme. A public petition against digital ID gained more than 1.5 million signatures, and Starmer backed down in January. As of now, digital ID remains optional in the UK. According to Ofcom, their figures, 89% of adult internet users in the UK use at least one social media platform. By making these users prove their identity before accessing social media, Starmer's ban essentially forces a form of digital ID onto a population that rejected it last year. At least that's how tech executives see the ban. Ex-owner Elon Musk described the law as a wolf in sheep's clothing and said the real goal is to enable the UK government to track everyone. The verification is the point, Shopify CEO Toby Lutke wrote on X. Won't someone think of the children is usually never about the children. Who could the UK social media ban affect? The law could affect all smartphone users, not just those who use social media. Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, has argued the verification should be carried out by Apple and Google when smartphone users set up iOS or Android rather than by individual social media platforms. While this would allow Meta to avoid the legal responsibility of carrying out these checks itself, it would also tie every iOS or Android account to a real person and every British smartphone user to their device. Starmer favors this approach. Yeah, there's a surprise. 1 week before announcing the ban, he called on Apple and Google to implement such device-level checks, supposedly to make it impossible for children to take, share, or view nude images. Implementing this law would require the tech companies to scan every photo taken or received on a device for nudity, a measure that Apple introduced in 2021 but scrapped 2 years later amid outcry from privacy activists. Signal, an encrypted messaging app, threatened to leave the UK if Starmer's phone scanning plan went ahead. Forcing all UK residents to prove their age and or have all their content scanned simply to exercise their fundamental right to communicate is a perilous proposition, the company said. We know that mass surveillance and censorship capabilities will be expanded, forming a dangerous tool that will be wielded both in the UK and abroad to censor and surveil whatever they might consider a threat or harmful content. How could Starmer's social media ban be abused, you might ask? Well, let me tell you. Linking every social media account to an identifiable person would effectively spell the end of online anonymity in the UK. And by the way, I'm saying this because they're trying the same here. And tying every smartphone to a person would give the government unprecedented power to track the movement of criminals, political dissidents, and ordinary citizens. Thousands in the UK are already arrested for political posts every year, said Telegram CEO Pavel Durov, who was arrested in France for the same thing. Is this really about protecting children or identifying more people to arrest? The UK arrests around 30 people every day, or 12,000 per year, for offensive online posts or messages, according to data obtained by the Times last April. While this figure already dwarfs similar counts from China, Germany, and Russia combined, not all British police departments contacted by the newspaper agreed to disclose their data, meaning that the true figure is likely significantly higher. Meanwhile, only 11% of violent and sexual offenses cases in England and Wales end with the suspect being caught or charged. 11%. Hundreds of people were arrested in 2024 for making social media posts in support of anti-immigration riots, with one man jailed for 3 years for retweeting an anti-immigration post. Musk, who branded Starmer two-tier Keir after he released more than 1,000 serious criminals early to clear space for the speech offenders, declared the UK a police state after Starmer announced his social media ban. Wow. Last week, Ofcom ordered social media companies to put a crisis protocol in place to stop the spread of content inciting racial or religious hatred, making threats, or inciting violence during a crisis event. The EU has already used similar mechanism, the so-called rapid response system, to censor legitimate political speech deemed misinformation during elections, and Ofcom said that its order is a direct response to the misinformation that fueled the 2024 anti-immigration riots. With every British social media user verified, the content would not just be removed, its creator could easily be identified, located, and prosecuted on a scale beyond the 2024 crackdown. Furthermore, inciting racial or religious hatred is a vague and nebulous term, and facing the threat of prosecution and imprisonment, many social media users will likely choose not to share such content in the first place. As a result, videos of migrant crime, such as the recent attempted beheading in Belfast, or other incidents likely to cause unrest, including the arrest and death of Henry Novak over bogus racism claims last year, may never see the light of day, and the British government may avoid the kind of difficult questions that have triggered violent riots and tanked Starmer's popularity. Whether this scenario is an inevitable consequence of the ban or Starmer's goal all along, the end result is the same. Britain will become one of the first democracies in the world to require ID to access the internet. Big Brother Watch director Silky Carlo said Monday, "We have seen the growth of surveillance in this country and are sleepwalking toward a total surveillance state." Same here, right here in America. Right freaking here. Oh, well. Okay, well, now we're going to go back to Keir Starmer just because we like him. And we'll talk about the old Trumpster and here's what he said. So, Trump piles misery. Here's the name of the story. The UK Prime Minister failed badly, according to Trump, on migration and energy. This came out this morning, too, at about an hour and a half ago. President Trump has added to the pressure on UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, blasting his record on migration and energy in a social media post before the British leader announced his resignation. Trump's remarks come amid soaring U.S.-UK relations over the Iran war, while the U.S. State Department has accused the UK of two-tier policing, and so did Vance. In a Truth Social post on Sunday, Trump declared that Starmer would resign and said the Labor leaders failed badly on two important subjects, immigration and energy, open North Sea oil. I wish him well. Commenting on Trump's remarks, British broadcaster Piers Morgan said the fact that the U.S. president had announced the UK leader's resignation before Starmer himself had done so was the final humiliation. Starmer confirmed on Monday that he will indeed stand down as prime minister and Labour leader, but said he will remain in the post until the party leadership contest is complete. Pressure on Starmer is built since Labour lost nearly 1,500 council seats in local elections in May, with 80 Labour MPs calling for him to go. The crisis deepened after Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, who was not yet sworn in as a Member of Parliament, won a decisive by-election victory in Makerfield last Thursday, taking nearly 55% of the vote and emerging as the chief contender to replace Starmer. So this Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, got to keep our eye on him. The Starmer government has also been beset by numerous scandals, including the appointment of Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to the US, despite his ties with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It was also plagued by the reemergence of grooming gang cover-up accusations. Last month, the U.S. State Department accused Britain of two-tier policing after body cam footage showed officers handcuffing 18-year-old Polish-British university student Henry Novak as he died, while his killer, a 23-year-old Sikh, claimed to be the victim of a racist attack. Have you guys seen that video? It is very troubling. Don't go thinking you're free in England. Those days are gone. Trump and Starmer's relationship was also frayed over the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, with the UK Prime Minister initially blocking use of the Diego Garcia base on the Chagos Islands to attack Iran. At one point, Trump said that Starmer is no Winston Churchill. Yeah, that's everybody believes that's the old Green Goblin. That's Z-Man. Crazy sauce. Meanwhile, U.S. and Iran talks are going absolutely nowhere. Neither side is budging on its demands, and Israel is a structural threat to any peace. Anyway, J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. I don't understand this team. On one side, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on the other, and Qatar and Pakistan in the middle as essential intermediate. By the way, did you hear about what happened in Qatar? Blew up, where is this? Where? Yeah, there's missing and injured, and it's not good. Here. Dozens injured or missing after an explosion rocks the Qatari gas hub. So up north of Doha, on the edges of Doha, there's a place called Ras Laffan, and it's an industrial city. It's friggin' huge. It's wow. And a massive explosion and fire hit Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city on Sunday evening. And authorities attribute the incident to a technical malfunction during operations at a local gas facility. There were not an attack, is what they're saying. Qatar's Interior Ministry said the initial explosion occurred at a factory in Ras Laffan due to a technical incident, adding that civil defense teams were responding. There was no threat to public safety. At least 54 people were injured in the blast, and 18 are considered still missing, the ministry said in a later update. And this was an enormous explosion. You could see it. Somebody happened to be filming up in their place. You can find it in the alternative media, and it is quite the blaze. Qatar Energy said the blast occurred during the startup of the Barzan local gas supply facility in the evening hours of June 21. Emergency teams were deployed, and the resulting fire has been brought under control. Videos circulating online show a large fireball lighting up the sky. It's a big-ass fireball, followed by a towering plume of smoke from the direction of the industrial zone. Ras Laffan is located in north of Doha, one of the world's most important gas processing hubs, and is central to Qatar's liquefied natural gas industry. Complex was among the U.S.-linked facilities that Iran hit earlier in the war in retaliation for the Israeli strike on its own South Pars gas fields. The incident comes as U.S. and Iranian officials hold follow-up talks in Switzerland on the memorandum of understanding aimed at ending the conflict and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, with Qatar and Pakistan acting as mediators. The deal has been fiercely opposed by Israel, which continues its military operations in Lebanon, despite the agreement's call for an end to hostilities on all fronts. Qatar has played a key mediation role throughout the process, with Pakistan and Swiss talks are focused on implementation of the U.S.-Iran memorandum, including maritime security, sanction relief, Iran's nuclear program, and the future administration of the Strait of Hormuz. Let's see. Meanwhile, the talks are going nowhere. Vance, Witkoff, Kushner, Qatar, Pakistan, Abbas Araghchi, they're all essential, to the process, but the two sides can't hold a technical conversation. Just that tells you something pretty important about the state of trust between Washington and Tehran. They need Qatar and Pakistan to be there. The atmosphere has been tense from the start. The Iranian delegation went out of its way to avoid being seen publicly alongside the Americans. Disputes over protocol drag on. Trump's characteristically combative statements issued in parallel with the talks did little to steady the room, and yet the meeting held. The process, as mediators announced afterward, was kept alive. But kept alive for what? The memorandum signed on June 17th is not a peace treaty or even a framework agreement in any meaningful sense. It's a temporary, non-binding statement of intent whose primary function is not to end the conflict but to postpone its next phase. Every substantive issue, Iran's nuclear program, sanction, freedom of navigation through the Straits of Hormuz, the situation in Lebanon, mechanisms to prevent further military escalation have all been pushed to a 60-day negotiating track. Washington has been trying to sell this as a win, and on the surface, the framing has some logic to it. Now, I disagree with it. I frankly happen to agree with the point of view of you stop hostilities when you end the war, just like Putin and company are demanding between Russia and Ukraine. We don't want a ceasefire. We want the whole thing freaking over. Agree and move on. Figure it out. Do something. So I don't agree with this. All righty. Are you there, caller?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you there? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I want to talk about the media bias. I think politics are skewed. It always seems to be 50-50. And, man, Trump does some clown shit, and the media doesn't harp on it like they did on Biden. You know, Biden was old and messed up, too. The Democrats aren't much better than the Republicans, except for they seem to throw the poor people a bone every once in a while. That's the only difference. And the media just glosses over the babbling shit that Trump does. It's insane.
Yeah, but they beat the hell out of him far more than they ever did on Democrats. Unless you're looking at news from, I don't know, Fox News or something. They beat up and plenty of people after he finally after the emperor was discovered to be naked during that debate with Trump, where he was a complete moron. After that, they went after him, but before that, everybody protected him. I mean, we all watched it, and now
Sure.
they do beat up a little bit.
You understand why? The same reason they're protecting Trump. Now, you don't think Trump has dementia? Do you see him fall asleep? Do you think that's a good look for the president to close his eyes and lay his head down while he's in the middle of a press conference?
No, I don't.
Do you?
I do not. No.
It's not.
And I don't like it.
Well,
and they had to wake up old Biden a couple times, and I understand it's a continuing problem with the old Trumpster too. And but what is he 80 now? How old is that guy? Didn't he just turn 80?
You know the big difference between Biden and Trump was Biden had experts and let the military experts.
Biden didn't have any more experts than Trump. They're all idiots. They are not experts. They are politicians. That's it. And you appoint people that will lick your ass. That's what you will do. And they all do it.
The military, all those generals, the chief of, they fired the highest ranking officials in the military.
I know.
Anything to do with nuclear science or military or anybody that puts anybody in the opposition to Trump gets fired, and he just runs his policy by gut, and he's an 80-year-old demented man, and he bumbles left and right, and the media just glosses it over.
Well, I
media's
think what
rigged
he
to
has
where
done, I think he has.
it's going to say 50%, no matter what. If Trump was to do something terrible, they would just campaign on the blue team
Exactly.
Until,
Well, we believe identically on that. I believe in it's one uniparty. It doesn't matter who's in charge, which party. All you've done is change the color of the gown you're wearing to the wedding. That's it. It's different caterer. You know what I mean? It's whoever's buddies you bring in, and you were talking about experts first, and you can anybody can buy an expert. If you ever practice law, you can find an expert to say anything you need an expert to say. You just got to find the right one and you find him, you pay him. He's a person paid for his opinion. Don't think it's any different in government service. They only keep the people who toe the line. And the line is determined not by the expert. The line is determined by the politician. And it's especially true in nuclear weapons. When I served myself in the nuclear weapon part, we were doing something very positive, but people didn't like that. People wanted, certainly the military-industrial powers didn't like it. They make more money by rearming, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. And everything that we did in the 90s to make the world a safer place is now in reverse. And we're making, and worldwide, we're making, and the $1.5 trillion budget that went up by 67% at a minimum in 1 year should, if that doesn't clarify that it's all about the money and all about the propaganda and all about the uniparty.
How much airtime did that get?
How much airtime did what get? The 67% increase?
Just babbling out that, yeah.
Not enough, because it happened anyway.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's happened, but he wants.
They're already spending it. It doesn't matter. They're already spending it. The budget doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters.
You want me to talk over you for a minute?
Well, okay, go ahead.
What? Did you hear Trump say that they didn't have money for health care and child care? That should be a state thing.
I actually hadn't heard that.
Yeah, he said that health care and child care are too big for federal government. The federal government needs to, I'm paraphrasing, but concentrate on war. And the media just glosses all that stuff over. He just gets a pass. He's a damn fool. You can. There's gaff tapes for hours on him. And
but they all have them. They're all morons. And supporting one over the other is you're taking.
Trump is an exceptional moron.
Well, everybody's free to have their own opinion. I think that they're all of the same cloth. They're clothes cut out of the same cloth.
Did you hear him say Sharaf from Syria should fight Hezbollah?
Yeah, I heard that too. I know.
Huh?
Yeah, I heard that. I disagree.
What Sharaf said?
I don't think I've heard. I have not heard his reply yet. No.
He said it ain't us. He said that's a you problem.
Well, the whole.
He was the leader of ISIS.
Yeah, I know. I know. They're the
and the president sprayed cologne on him and said what a great man he is.
I know. I heard all that. And in politics.
$300 billion,
money. It's all about the money. I do not agree with what's going on in these negotiations. I don't believe this 60-day pause is going to change anything dramatic. I don't believe, and I never have. I don't believe the uniparty is gone. I don't believe it ever will be. Not in America. We I sit here and I've been telling you all about Keir Starmer and At least there, they have to come up with some kind of a.
Yeah, Trump blurted that shit out. He wasn't. That wasn't for Trump to announce.
Well, that's true.
But he's an old man, he just does what he wants.
And he always does what he wants, and everybody knows that. So, and this is really terrible because
of America.
I believe that people don't take him as seriously as they ought to because of stuff like that.
Busting alliances is not a good thing.
If you think Britain is still remains our steadfast ally, I'd question that as well.
Well, they were supposed to be.
Well, I know they're supposed to be. So is everybody else.
Hey, this is more cultural. How many people do you think paid attention to politics before Trump started parroting that the world's broken and the world's on fire and he's the only one that can fix it? Most of these dummies didn't have any clue what was going on in politics before he come on and said he's the only one that could save the world.
Yeah, I know. And it's the same thing going on in England right now. I played that piece from Farage earlier, and Farage is following the same playbook. And he's doing it quite well, by the way. And I believe he's a force to be reckoned with. Let's put it that way, because he
so he's catering to unintelligent people.
Well, I don't know about that. It's he's telling people what they wish to hear, and I'll tell you this: I'm not anti-immigration, but I'm anti-unchecked immigration without any sort of verification. Without it, I mean, you can't just open the freaking borders and allow people to wander in like England's doing right now.
Is that the problem in America?
It has been since I was a kid. It has been since back then. It was everybody opened the borders and all the Mexicans were running over. But you know how we fixed that? We made their economy better than ours. Where are all our auto plants just across the border in Mexico? Hell, they're making great money. You want to make good money? Go work at an auto plant in Mexico. That's where they all are.
You're not going to make good money. That's why they're there, for cheap labor.
Well, but if you speak Spanish and you go over there and you understand English and Spanish, you can go over there and make just what you would make here. Why do you think all the managers are over there doing it? You think the managers are native Mexicans? Not so. Where do you think they send all their experts from? Where do you think you get them? Where do you think you hire these people from? The people that have the bigger jobs are not just, that are working the line. That might be your Mexicans. That's where the money comes from. But the big money still gets paid out to the management staff, and that's the same.
But how big of a problem? To me, the problem is I can't afford beef, and I don't have health care, and gas is too high. I don't blame Mexicans for that.
I don't either. I don't blame Mexicans for that. So you think open borders is it? You think open borders is the way it ought to be? Everybody ought to have an open border.
Why does everything have to be black or white with you people?
What is you people? I'm asking you a question.
The you people is conservatives. You're a conservative Trump supporter, aren't you?
I've been bashing Trump the whole time we've been talking. I'm not anti-Trump, but I sure as hell ain't for him. I'm a middle of the roader.
I'm not anti-Trump, but I ain't for him. Way to take a stance.
Well, I've said this repeatedly and I think I've even told you. Trump in general in America, I'm okay with. As soon as he steps outside the border, I think I am very negative on everything that has happened so far. I don't know what else to tell you. Internationally, I think he's a friggin' mess. Domestically, they all suck, and I'm willing to live with him. And what's your option? Put in a complete lack of intelligence. Like, what were our choices the last few times? We get these two choices, and they always suck.
One choice is to not act like it's okay for Trump to run over Congress and tear up the White House. And,
have I said that's all okay? I don't take a position on that. I don't give a crap. Do whatever you want with that. I don't care.
You don't take a position on anything I'm talking about, it seems.
Well, what do you want me to take a position on? Whether or not there ought to be a ballroom? I don't give a shit if there's a ballroom. And if they want to spend money and they want to fight about it, you know what they're doing? They're distracting people away from it. You act like Congress gets to be in charge of that? They're just as big a jokers as he is.
Well, yeah, that's a problem.
Oh, no doubt.
Immigration and trans women in sports is not a problem.
Well, that's
not a big enough problem to worry about.
Well,
we should put out the fires and then paint the place. You know what I'm saying?
Well, possibly, but we'll agree to disagree on that one because I am completely against taking women and turning them into something they're not.
What does that have to do with federal government?
What does anything have to do with the federal government?
That is a conservative talking point issue. You hire people based on their take on abortion, trans issues.
I don't.
When I say you work at that station. You're a conservative Trump supporter. In general,
you keep accusing me of stuff, and you know I'm not a conservative Trump supporter. I pick the lesser of two evils. That is all you can do in America is pick the lesser of two evils. You think I believe the crap that he spouts off or that any Republican has spouted off in years? Forget it. You think I believe the Democrats? I don't believe them any more or less. I'm far less likely to believe them because conservative financial principles are where I have been my entire life. As far as who wants to play dress up and be a woman, I don't care. If somebody wishes to be gay, I give a rip. Just don't parade it in front of my 5-year-old as the preferred method and teach them that it's okay. Those are my basic views. Abortion, not my choice, but I'm very much anti. I'm not a woman. I don't get to make that choice. That means, how do you get to pick? They've been making people fight over shit our entire lives. We've had to pick. You can't pick plus or minus on abortion because both sides suck. And depend on the circumstances in which the person has to make the choice. In a perfect world, if I got a girl pregnant, I would hope that she would honor me enough, because I slept with her, for God's sake. She had to have liked me a bit to at least take my opinion in a point of view. But could I dictate it to her? No. And what does the law say at the time? And by the way, laws change. 150 years ago, I just been doing my CLE for real estate, and I'm doing a review of all the Jim Crow laws, the girl in the Rosa Parks in the bus, and all these schooling things, and it takes a long freaking time for change to occur. When did the law change with regard to fair housing? And then in the 60s, 1960s. When was slavery abolished? 100 years prior. How long did it take to get any meaningful change? 100 freaking years. The wheels go extremely slowly, and they don't go by. And the unfortunate part of all this is that every 4 years we take these massive changes and change the entire country's direction and go 180 degrees the opposite direction of what we just were, with idiocy of executive orders. And I really apologize, but I got about 2 minutes left. So respond.
Well, thanks for taking my call. Hey, call me in your off time sometime. I want to ask you about drawing up a lease contract.
Okay. I'd be interested in doing that. You have a very nice day.
Thanks.
And there he goes. Well, I never finished the track on the Iran. and the talks are not going well. A memorandum of failure is what it is and what it will be. On the nuclear question, Iran has agreed to suspend certain enrichment activities during the 60-day window, but there are no permanent constraints established. The underlying infrastructure remains intact. On sanctions, the picture is also very thin. The memorandum gestures toward future relief, but no sanctions have been lifted. Frozen Iranian assets haven't been returned. The architecture of economic pressure that Washington has gotten used to and spent years putting in place means that Tehran has a concrete concession without receiving anything concrete in return, because they're getting them to take it out. Strait of Hormuz provisions are probably the most fragile of all. The memorandum calls for safe passage, mutual restraint, but there are no enforcement mechanisms. There's no monitoring body, no agreed response protocol, no clarity on what is a violation. A single incident involving tanker harassment or confrontation between naval vessels will render this section meaningless before the 60 days are even half over. All that being said, it's not looking good that the Iran war is doing anything more than being put on a brief pause while they started back up. And I hope the Qatari thing really was an industrial accident and not a bombing effort. I appreciate you being here. Hope you have a very good week. Join me again tomorrow, 7:30 to 9, International Flavor, internationalflavor.com, or listen to damradio.com /live in your spare time. Have a great day.